I'm going to disappoint you. I'm going to speak to the bill.
Delegate has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back in 2015, we had a bill to adopt what was labeled a rate freeze. And I asked the question in committee, could not the State Corporation Commission, with its accountants, its engineers, decide what was a fair amount and what could be done? And the answer was yes, they can do that. That is what they are constituted to do. And the question that's really before us today in the form of this measure, a 62-page with 23 reenactment clauses. I'm sure you've all read this over the weekend, have digested it, and know exactly what each of those clauses means. But in case you have not, let me just remind us of some things at the 30,000-foot level or beyond, and begin with this question. How should a monopoly utility be regulated? There is a provision in the Code of Virginia for a group called the State Corporation Commission. They're almost a fourth branch of government, and there's a reason why 100 years ago we put them in place. And we enabled them and gave them the capacity to look at utilities and deal with and decide rate cases. They have that capacity, and historically, the General Assembly has said what the strike zone is, and we've let the State Corporation Commission call balls and strikes. What we're doing, what we're fixing to do, is to change the strike zone almost to get rid of the strike zone. It's going to be very difficult for the State Corporation Commission to do what it needs to do. And I really asked the question, will it be the regulated that becomes the regulator? I hope we will not engross this bill.
Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Keam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking against the bill.
Delegate has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I wasn't planning on speaking either because I assume that a lot of folks here have already made up their minds. And for those who haven't made up their minds, I think I know which way you're all are leaning because of the fact that you just accepted that floor amendment that would try to improve the bill. But I wanted to speak to follow up from the gentleman from Powhatan because he and I share a lot in common, including the fact that we think alike on some of these issues. And I want to pick up on his point and just point out a couple of facts here for us to consider here. And I can certainly respect and understand and appreciate those that want to support the bill. Because frankly, at this stage, I think the easy vote is a yes. You have the governor who personally negotiated a lot of good provisions. He had a lot of green energy. He had a lot of efficiency language. You have a lot of groups that normally would align themselves on this side of the aisle in favor, LCV and others, who are enthusiastic with what they've been promised in this bill. So I think for many of us on this side of the aisle, the easy vote would be a yes. For many of my friends on the other side of the aisle, the easy vote would be a yes as well, because the chairman put in a lot of time and effort. And I know many of his members, including my good friends who I serve with on Commerce and Labor, have done a lot of work to make sure that this bill is as good as it can possibly be, to not only help Dominion and APCO, but also to help our ratepayers have some certainty. And so I commend everybody for doing this. But my concerns, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I voted against this in the subcommittee, and turned out I happen to be the only member of my side of the aisle that voted against this, and I'm going to plan on voting against this again tonight or tomorrow, is a little bit different than just the substance of what's in the bill, what's not in the bill, what's good and what's not good. For me, it's a fundamental question of what is the role of us as legislators in this environment when we've been asked to regulate an industry that affects all of our lives. And we made a decision a long time ago, just like the gentleman from Powhatan just mentioned, that we made a compact that says, since electric utility is such a difficult thing for the private sector to offer on its own, we, the government, will help you by giving you a license, giving you a monopoly, giving you the chance to serve everybody, and that we will guarantee your profit. In exchange, all we ask is that you follow some rules. All we ask is that you have transparency. All we ask is that when you come before us, you tell us what's going on. Our government bureaucrats who know this stuff will be able to test you and ask you, and then we move on a yearly basis so that the rates you charge your customers every day will be the fairest rate possible. That is what the public interest standard said. And that was the deal we had until 1999. when the rest of the nation said, you know what, the energy industry is becoming more and more commercialized. There's more free market happening. And so a lot of folks who thought, let's give that a try, moved away from the idea of government-regulated monopoly into a private sector. So we tried competition for 8 years. We tried to encourage other companies to come in and say, hey, compete with Dominion, compete with APCO, compete with our electric co-ops, and give us better electricity. Give us more green energy. Give us more renewables. Give us a chance to have better energy for cheaper for our consumers. And ladies and gentlemen of the House, that did not work. After 8 years of trying the deregulated model, the free market model, it didn't work. All of you in this room who were here in 2007, I wasn't here, but all of you in this room voted to bring us back into the model of a regulated monopoly in 2007. You voted to re-regulate this industry because the free market did not work for that purpose. So at that point, the deal was, starting in 2007, a couple of years after that when the rate reviews kick in, that we will defer back to the State Corporation Commission, the expert agencies, on how they will review the rates of APCO and Dominion. And ladies and gentlemen of the House, I've only been here since 2010, but since 2007, and at least since the time I've been here, I have not seen a single time in the last 8 years when this General Assembly let the SEC do its job just as we told them to do it. We told them in 2007, this is your job. And yet year after year after year, we have bills that come up here that take that right away from them. They take that power and authority away from them. That we deem that our knowledge and our expertise trumps the knowledge and expertise of the bureaucrats and the lawyers that we've hired to do this job. So year after year after year, we've said, here are all the tools, but we're just going to deem that you're not going to be able to exercise this. We will replace our judgment instead. 2013, I remember distinctly. I came to this House. I was still fairly new. I didn't know how things were going, and I was told that there was an emergency. We had all these storm cleanup. It was going to cost a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars for Dominion and APCO, so we need to give them an emergency clause. Let's give them a chance to recoup that cost. I said, that sounds reasonable. Let's do it. So we voted for that. 2014, they came back and said, we're building another a nuclear power plant, North Anna 3. We're needing billions of dollars up front, and we need you to give us an exemption. So I voted for that. 2015, they came and said, you know what? Obama administration is doing something really bad for us, the Clean Power Plan. That's going to affect our industry for so long. We need you to exempt us from regulation once again. 2013, 2014, 2015. By the third time I said, you know what, I'm starting to feel like Charlie Brown and the Lucy. Every time I trust you, instead of giving us the refunds back, you've taken that money, $300, $400 million, and added it to your costs. As a result, the taxpayers didn't get their money back, and that became part of their over earnings that wasn't returned, but it was investment instead. So 2015, I said, no, I'm not going to vote for this. And here we are 3 years later. They want us to trust them once again and give us a way to exempt the SEC out of the process. Instead of a 2-year review, now it's 3 years. Instead of $400 million that should have been returned in 2013 and another $300 million in 2014 and however much we had in 2015, we're now told, trust us and we'll return all your money in 6 years after 2 triennial reviews are done. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, for me, this isn't so much about what's in the bill, and there are a lot of good things in it, but it's for me about what is our role as legislators. Are we going to concede over the last 10 years that we are the experts here, that we will replace our judgment with the judgment of the SEC officials? Not that I agree with the SEC 100%, but are we going to do that, or are we going to go forward and let the regulators regulate the industry that we said should be re-regulated? That's the reason I'm going to vote no, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Delegate from Carroll.